you deal with resistance to change in an organization? Well, in my work leading a multi-million-dollar consulting company, working with Fortune 500 organizations all over the world, I have learned that resistance to change is real and needs to be understood and mitigated in order to ensure the success of a given change initiative. And I've got a few highly effective tips to help you do just that. You ready? Let's get it. Resistance is real, and though you might not feel resistant to change personally, I assure you that some or many of those around you do. So how do you deal with that? Not allowing that resistance to take hold, stalling, or even defeating your change initiatives? Well, by the end of this video, you're going to understand our research-backed drivers to resistance. And I'm also going to share 4 tips to mitigate any resistance you might be experiencing in your organization. At my company, Change Enthusiasm Global, we recently partnered with a leading research institute, CGK, to study change and emotion in the workplace, really looking to understand how is emotion showing up in the organization when going through a lot of change, disruption, or growth. What drives resistance? What are some effective strategies to mitigate that resistance? Well, I want to share with you what that research showed us as far as the drivers behind resistance to change. And it's interesting, and I want to share the way it's broken out generationally. So for our older generations, baby boomers and Gen Y, we find that resistance to change is fueled by not wanting to be uncomfortable and really just being comfortable with the way things are. Not wanting to change things. This is the way we've always done it. Why are you trying to change it? I've been successful to this point. Let's not change it. And then the younger generation, so the younger millennials as well as Gen Z, it's about a fear of not looking stupid, of not making a mistake, of not failing or falling down. Those are 2 of the really big drivers of resistance to change. And if you notice, it's all rooted in the signal emotional energy of change, right? Those difficult emotions, the fear of not looking stupid, the anxiety or the fear frustration of feeling uncomfortable, of being in a zone where they're not familiar, where they're unknowns, where they have to learn something new. That energy, that emotion, is typically what's driving your resistance, typically what's driving your change backwards as opposed to forward. So now that we understand the top 2 drivers of resistance to change, I want to share with you 4 ways that you can mitigate any resistance that the organization and the individuals that comprise it might be feeling. The very first way to mitigate resistance to change is ensuring that you're clarifying and communicating the why behind the change. Why is this change so imperative? Why is it something that has a sense of urgency and needs to happen now? And now, what I will offer as you're working to cultivate and really clarify the why behind a given change initiative, don't just focus on the data. Don't just focus on those success metrics. This is how the business is going to grow. This is how we're going to delight our shareholders. This is how we're going to continue to grow our revenue, our profit. Also marry in the why of the emotional tie-in, right? How is the employee experience going to change? How is the experience for your clients, your customers, your partners going to change, going to become better? Talk about the experience, how life is going to be made better because of a given change. When we can tie in the emotional aspect of the why behind making a change, that's really when we can get that buy-in, that emotional tie-in that's going to allow employees to remain motivated when moving through that change. I know that not only is this change going to help me build and grow the business, but I also know my work is going to get easier. My work will become more efficient and more streamlined once this change is introduced. And that's just an example of what an employee might be thinking once you've expressed the why, not only with the data, but also with the emotional portions and the rationale behind the why. The second tip on helping to mitigate resistance that might be felt across an organization is clear and regular communication of the progress and the status of the change. I can remember when I was a mid-level executive and I was helping to lead the integration of an acquisition of a business. And there were times when there was information that leadership had shared with us as executives that we couldn't share out to the organization. There were also times when I just didn't have all the information. But that didn't stop us from doing a weekly communication drumbeat. And we were either dispersing new information or simply repeating the information that we were still at liberty to share. And I will tell you, there was such power in doing that and still communicating something, even if it wasn't new. Because what it does is it sets up this expectation with your employees and with your teams that every week they're going to see a new comm, right? They're going to see a new communication to show them the progress, the status of the initiative. And it helps to kind of mitigate that anxiety, that fear that can run rampant when there's more questions than answers. So the more that you can regularly and clearly communicate the status and the progress of the change, better it's going to be for the workforce to remain engaged and really just to remain in the know. Now, I will say this, there are certainly going to be times that you're going to be asked questions that you just don't have the answer to. And don't be shy about sharing the fact that you don't have the answer, but let them know that once I do have the knowledge, I will be sure to share it with you when I'm at liberty to do so. And I always use that as an opportunity to even reinstate what I can share. What I do know is the following. I don't have a response to your answer today, but I will work to find a response. And when I'm able to share that, I certainly will. So that's a great way to make sure that you're still nurturing that trust and that your employees know that you've got your finger on the pulse and that you're sharing as best as you can and as quickly as you can information as it becomes available. The third way to mitigate resistance is honestly one of my favorites. It's about leveraging the skill of curiosity. Getting curious about what's driving the resistance from individual to individual. You know, I often share, I've shared in a few of these videos and often from the stage, everyone wears change a little bit differently. And so it's so important that you're curious about every individual, how they're managing the change and how they're moving through the change journey. And by getting curious, especially about those that you can see are being resistant, you can see are holding back, you can see are kind of trying to hold others back, you can really work to understand the root cause of that resistance. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, normally or most commonly, that resistance is rooted in fear, anxiety, or frustration. So understand what's creating that for that particular individual. And is it rooted in reality or perception? A perception of what could happen versus a reality of what actually is happening. And if it's a perception, you can work with them to help them see this isn't actually what's about to happen, or this isn't actually going to be the reality. If it's reality-based, you can understand if there's a way that that individual can help you better the change journey, make things more efficient or effective. There's a lot of insight and a lot of data that we can get from those who are resistant in an organization. And again, get curious. What's driving that? What's behind it? So you can work with that individual to enroll them in the change and maybe even help you make that change more effective and more efficient for others moving forward. The fourth and final tip to mitigate resistance in an organization is to establish avenues for employees to feed back. To feed back to you what's working, what's not working, what are they challenged by, and what are they struggling with. You know, in our research, when we were looking to study strategies that are effective to engage an organization or an individual that might be feeling resistant, is having those avenues established for them to share their ideas, their perspective, what's working, what's not. And so as you think about your comm strategy, make sure that it's a two-way street, right? You're not just expressing information going down through the organization, but you're also listening back from the organization. And I will tell you this, the most dangerous thing that you can do is establish these avenues, whether it be through management one-on-ones, whether it be through Q&A in a town hall, or maybe even submitting anonymously to an email address. When you create that avenue and then do nothing with the data, you will lose that one ingredient that's so critical to keep employees engaged, and that's trust. So don't establish the avenue and then do nothing with the data that you receive. The employees need to see that they're being heard, that you're listening. So share with them, here's what we've heard back through your comments, through your feedback. Here's what we're going to employ to make the change journey better. Here's what we are already employing, and here's what we're not. And here are the reasons why. So make sure that you're expressing and letting them know we are hearing you, we're integrating what you're saying as best as we can. Establish that two-way street, information going through the organization and then feedback coming back from the organization. If you dug this, if you got value, I got something else for you, and you ain't got to pay for it. I want to share with you a clip of a keynote recording that I did for an organization going through tremendous change. And they were my insights that I've gleaned from working with organizations all over the world, as well as research that we've done with a leading research institute, CGK. And it's yours today for free. All you got to do is click the link below. I want to make sure you have the research, the insights, and the data to successfully fuel your growth through even your greatest change challenges. I'm Cassandra Worthy, and until we meet again, keep growing and keep rocking.